Welcome everybody to another episode of Get Involved. I'm joined here today with Alicja. She's a co-op pioneer, exclusively working in Kentish Town with organisations, and also Ian from Homestart Camden and Islington. You might know me by now, I'm Mike G. I run Community Spot, which is an initiative in Kentish Town to connect more people with where they live. We send weekly info every Sunday over WhatsApp, and you can find us at communityspot.org. So what's your favourite spot in Kentish Town, would you say?
I think that the general Kentish Town High Street is a really nice place. It's always quite kind of bustling and lively, and it looks like there's a lot of kind of different types of businesses, different organisations, a lot of diversity in one place.
What about you, Ian?
Well, I live in Camden, but near a Swiss cottage. But of course, the office for Homestart Camden and Islington is in Kentish Town. It's in Dowdney Close, so I frequently go there. So I know the area quite well.
Nice. And would you have any favourite spots in Kentish Town?
Oh, anywhere that sells coffee is good for me. But yeah, I agree with it. It's a nice bustling high street and a nice residential area as well.
So maybe we'll start with you, Alicja. Can you just tell us a bit more about what it's like to be a co-op pioneer? What is that, and about the work that you do in the community?
So the co-op has, over the last year or so, massively upscaled an initiative of placing member pioneers in kind of every area of the UK. So they've divided the country up into small clusters of stores, and it's all very hyper-local. So within my Kentish Town area, it's just the Kentish Town Road food store, Fortress Road, Caledonia Road, the petrol station there, and the funeral care. And the general purpose of the role is basically to act as a communicator, catalyst, and connector for the local area. So helping to bring different people together, bring different charitable organizations together. But it's very much a case of going into the community and seeing what's already there, what's happening, looking for any gaps in terms of perhaps areas that aren't being addressed, and seeing if there's anything that we can do as an organization to help support, either by kind of connecting people who might be working on similar goals and helping them to start conversations, by sharing general kind of knowledge and expertise on an area, or kind of more tangibly maybe in terms of helping with fundraising or helping organizations to raise awareness about what they're doing by coming into stores, by posting on our community notice board. So it's very much kind of led by the community and dependent on what the people there want.
Okay, great. And you were talking about fundraising, and you reached out to me, didn't you? And we've had a chat before about funding for Community Spot, and it's exactly that. You kind of saw that we were doing some stuff in the community, and it's amazing that the cooperative does stuff like this and has people like yourself to be able to actually plug those gaps about where the community need is and what needs funding. So I thought that was amazing. And it's amazing that they would employ someone like a pioneer to do that. I think it's a really good initiative from a company, a good company, not an evil company.
I agree.
Cool. And what about you, Ian? Could you tell us a bit about Homestart Camden and Islington, and also how you and Alicja have connected in the past?
Yeah, the Homestart Camden Islington is a grassroots charity that supports and empowers families with young children who are struggling to cope with everyday life. So what we do is to send in volunteers into their home when we're allowed to, depending on the circumstances, and we provide non-judgmental support, which it varies incredibly from family to family. We have about 180 families at the moment that we've been supporting over the last year or so, and there are about 130 volunteers that have been with us for the last year or so. So it's very much a one-to-one kind of thing. The volunteers get to know the families and win their trust, and actually support them emotionally and practically as well. So it's very much a local charity which has its roots in the community, and that's why our relationship with the co-op is so valuable. We've been had a relationship with the co-op for a few years now, and we're very get on very well with the two local stores in Kentish Town, and they provide us with support in many ways. They help us with some financial support through a scheme where if people buy certain products, then a percentage of that will come to a nominated charity, which we are. And they also provide us with food and drink for when we do our volunteer training evenings. And all of the money we get from them goes towards helping us to recruit, train, and support, volunteers. So that's our lifeblood. We need to keep getting new volunteers. We need to keep getting more volunteers so that we can help more families. And that's what the co-op helps us do.
That's awesome. And when did you two first connect? Was it a while ago or recently?
I don't know. It's been a few years. I mean, I know that since 2017, I think the co-op's raised over £7,000 towards our charity, which isn't a vast amount, but we're a small charity, and every contribution really helps.
Yeah, for sure. And you said it's been going for a number of years now, Homestart, Camden and Islington.
Homestart, Camden and Islington has been going for 25 years. In fact, we're celebrating our 25th anniversary this year. So yes, it's been going for quite a time. We've been, embedded in the community for that long. It used to be just Homestart Camden, and we were focused on Camden alone. But about a couple of years ago, we also took in Islington because the services there failed, and they couldn't give the support anymore. So we decided to embrace that, and it's been a real challenge for the last couple of years because we've obviously want to be true to our Camden roots and keep continuing to help all the families we can in Camden, but we've also want to help as many families in Islington as we can. So we've been expanding a bit, but it's been a challenge. And of course, the last few months have been a particular challenge because our basis of a lot of our support for the families is in-home visits. And of course, what we've been unable to do over the last few months is exactly that. We haven't been able to go into homes in the same way. So we've had to switch what we do to a lot more telephone support, online support if the families have that capability, but we're continuing to support them, and also in far more practical ways over the last few months as well, because their needs have changed. And whereas a lot of, in the past, it would have been advice and counsel and putting them in contact with there were a lot more practical needs, like how can I get money? How can I get food? So we're helping them by supplying them with that. We're putting them in touch with people who can do that, and just changing the things we do. For instance, recently we put together activity packs for children under 5, and we delivered those to a lot of the families because a lot of them were telling us the biggest problem they got is keeping the children happy and amused. So we've been trying to help in the best way we can over the last few months, but the basic model still remains. It's about support and advice and guidance to help empower them.
Well, I must say a happy Carers Week to you. It must be strange doing Carers Week without having that in-person contact with people, but it sounds like you've been doing an amazing job, changing tack and doing.
I think everybody in the community has reacted amazingly to the circumstances and adapted what they do. And there's so much now that that goes on that people thought a few months ago would have just stopped. And I think that, the charities have to be the same. And we've our staff, we've got a small staff, and they've been there for a number of years, a number of them, they're very low, but they've been great in showing how flexible and adaptable they are. Our volunteers, as I say, a number of them who would be going into homes can't do it that way, so they're doing it in other ways and using the phone and using it online. And generally, you can help people in all sorts of ways if you're flexible enough, and if you can, creative enough. And that's what we've been trying to do, carry on the service as best we can.
Nice. And what's your official title at Homestart?
I'm a trustee.
Okay.
So the charity has a board of trustees, which look after the guidance and of the charity, and make sure that everything's done in the way that a charity should be run. But basically, it's the staff and the volunteers that do all the work. We do what we can to support them, but they are the stars. They really do all the work on the front line, and I'm just glad to be involved, because for years I've lived in Camden for years. I used to be a school governor in Camden, but I only recently, a couple of years ago, retired from my work. So I was able to have more time to give to supporting things in the local community. And that's why Homestart, is a perfect thing for me to get involved with.
Sounds awesome. Sounds like I have a similar experience. I'm a trustee at Kentish Town Community Centre. So I kind of know how the relationship between the board of trustees and the operational staff sort of works. And it was a whole new thing for me when I got into it. Although you must find it very rewarding as well, even though you're effectively a volunteer.
Yes, it's an interesting relationship between trustees and organisations, because there's a balance that you have to achieve to get that. And I think it works very well for us with the staff at Homestart, Camden and Islington. But yes, more and more though, trustees have to get involved. It's not just a question of turning up to a meeting every month or two. Sure. I think we all do a lot more work now to support the charity and what it does.
So Alicja, with the co-op, you said that you work exclusively in Kentish Town. So you must have a fairly good knowledge of the local area and what issues are in Kentish Town. Obviously, the co-op have got a partnership with Homestart, with Ian and Homestart. What other types of organisations in Kentish Town are you working with? And also, what would you say the biggest issues are in Kentish Town that you are, throughout your tenure as a co-op pioneer, have been trying to address?
There's a lot to talk about there. So to start off with, the co-op did a massive piece of research work kind of before the member pioneers were properly put in place. And they've created something called a local community index. So I believe if you go online and look this up, it's freely available. It's basically a big kind of database where for each, again, kind of hyperlocal community, they've measured where the community is on. It's about 9 different factors. And it kind of gives you a score of how well you're doing against national averages. And that was kind of the first thing I looked at when I was looking at, right, how does Kentish Town compare to other organisations, other areas, and what are maybe some of the key issues that we're looking to tackle. And I think one of the main ones was actually around kind of equal opportunities. So about the fact that although Kentish Town is generally kind of, there's areas that are quite well off, but there's also areas that are in quite a lot of need, and that's something that might need addressing. In terms of the co-op, we also generally over the next 2 years have a focus on 3 specific kind of goals. So the first one is around protecting endangered community spaces. There's one around providing people with skills and knowledge, and there's one about well-being, so both physical and mental. So again, if I'm looking to support an organisation in Kentish Town, I'll make sure that it aligns with at least one of those 3 objectives. And then how well I'm performing in my role and member pioneers throughout the country kind of gets measured about against the goals we have in place for how many spaces we want to protect, how many people we want to provide with skills and training. In Kentish Town, I've been at least in conversations with quite a broad range of different organisations. So similar to what Homestart is doing, we're directly focusing on supporting the Elfriede Rathbone Foundation and Clean Break. But I've also done bits of work with kind of Kentish Town Community Centre, with Cooperation Kentish Town, who are now quite busy doing food distribution during coronavirus. I've arranged kind of donations to go to the local library to help them support old people's coffee mornings and things like that. And there's other people who I've been in conversations with, asking them in particular to apply. So we've just opened up applications for the next round of the local community fund. So we're looking for the 3 organizations that are going to become the next recipients of kind of a year's worth of funding from that 1% that Ian was talking about. So again, I've been reaching out broadly to people throughout Kentish Town who seem like they work in worthwhile organizations which align with the 3 co-op goals, and encouraging them to get their applications in.
So yeah, it seems like they're doing a really good job in Kentish Town, because like you said, there is a lot of difference in sort of income in lots of different areas of Kentish Town. And that's something that our first guest in this series, Sarah Hoyle, the centre manager of Kentish Town Community Centre, said that yeah, it's just difficult to meet the needs of those different areas. So that's really cool. It's good that you've had free reign over Kentish Town and being able to work autonomously and find those things which meet your goals. I think that's really cool. So Ian, the same question to you about, obviously you cover the Camden and Islington, but specifically in Kentish Town, what sort of issues does Home Start see?
Well, Kentish Town is exactly like a lot of other places in Camden and Islington in that it's incredibly diverse. If you think about it, Camden and Islington, and Kentish Town is a prime example, has an amazing population in that it's culturally so diverse. It's diverse in terms of, I think, we were saying before, that the very poor, the very rich, and a lot of people in between, somewhere on the scale. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges for us, is that we match volunteers with families, and they have to be able to relate to families and be able to communicate well with them. And of course, when you're talking about a number of families who may have issues in communication terms, who may have language issues, who may have problems in terms of how they communicate with outsiders from their family, it means you have to make sure that the volunteer is capable of relating to those individual families. That means that it's not just a question of every volunteer you can immediately match with a family. You have to be very careful about, and there's a lot of training goes into working with our volunteers. That's where the co-op have been very helpful in helping our training, because the training is vital. These people, we go into homes, they have to know what they're doing. They have to know spot the signs that they need to spot in order to give them the right advice, in order to give them the right support. So sometimes it's difficult, but Kentish Town, as I say, is exactly like some other areas that we deal with. It's part of what London is, I suppose. It's a very diverse, multicultural area, and that presents both problems and opportunities, really, because there obviously are a number of families that are in need of support in Kentish Town. The problem is, with a lot of them, they don't know how to get that support, and it's not necessarily given to them. They have to work out how to get it. That's why it's so important for us to be able to talk to people like you and have this communication channel, to be able to say we are reliant on 2 things: on referrals about families who are in need, and we get that from professionals, from doctors, from health visitors, people like that, but also we just need referrals from the general public if they feel that there are families near them that might need help and don't know where to get it. And we can provide that start. We may then refer them on somewhere, but in a lot of cases we can provide that support. But also we need the volunteers to do the work. So from the Kentish Town community, what we'll be really looking for is, one, awareness of what we do, and how that might affect them or people they know in their community, their neighbours, whatever, the people who live nearby, but also how they can help, how they might be able to be volunteers. We'd love donations, of course. Anyone who can donate is wonderful. But I think, as I said, the core of the work is the volunteers. And that's why the more people are aware of what we do, the more that they can relate to it, what we do, the more chance that they might say, oh, okay, I'd like to be a volunteer. What do I have to do to be trained to be one?
And how might people get involved with Home Start in terms of, you mentioned two main things there, I think, correct me if I'm wrong. One, referrals. So if you know people in need, so families, so refer them to Home Start, and also volunteers. So how would people get involved with those two main things?
Those are the two main. I mean, the third one is donations, which we're always happy to accept. And all three of those, the start point, as with most things, is the website. If you go to our website, homestartcamdenislington.org.uk, that's your entry point, because all of those things are covered in there, and you can make contact with us directly.
Okay, and what about you, Alicja? How do people get involved with Co-op and what you're doing?
So I think it kind of depends on whether it's an individual with ideas for something that they want to happen in the local community, or, as I said, if it's an organisation looking to apply for a year's worth of funding. If it's that level of information that you're after, you can go on the general Co-op website. So if you Google Co-op Local Community Fund, that gives most of the information and the application forms for the next round of funding. But if you want to get in touch with me to ask any questions, to put forward suggestions for events or organisations to support or anything like that, I have a Co-op email address. So it's alicia.bodding, which I'm sure you can copy and paste into the comments. And I'm also on Twitter.
Okay.
So that's another good way to get in touch.
I guess that's people like myself who might have been looking for funding from the Co-op, for them to get in touch with you, but also to refer other organisations. Yeah,
or even if you're just a resident in Kentish Town who's got ideas and kind of says, look, I think here's an area that we're not currently addressing and I'd like to set up an organisation or an event or do something like that. Is there anything you can do to help?
Okay, so essentially you have a pot of money which is ready to give to good organisations in the area. And if people
there are different sources of funding. There's different kind of people I might be able to refer you on to or put in touch with.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I think that's probably a little known fact that there is so much financial support out there for organisations. You know, if they require that sort of funding from, say, the Co-op or the council or anything like that. I know that a lot of charities, you'll know this, Ian, a lot of charities and community organisations spend a lot of time writing funding applications because that's the oxygen that keeps them alive, right? So it's and people get very good at it. Sarah Hoyle at the community centre is very good at funding applications. I don't know how she does it. She just manages to take money out of anywhere. So it's definitely a skill. Is there anything else either of you would like to add before we wrap up?
Just to echo what Seema said, but apart from our website, yes, we also have a Facebook page and we have a Twitter account, so we can be contacted that way. Or if you do want to email us, the email to use is director@homestartcamden.org, which will take you to the director of the scheme, and she'll be able to deal with whatever the request is and put people in touch with the right people.
It's been nice to find out more again about what you're doing as a Co-op pioneer, and also more about Home Start, because I'd seen Home Start Camden and Islington, what you've been up to and stuff, and it's nice to put a face to the organisation as a trustee. So it's thanks for your time, and hopefully people will watch this, be inspired, I'm sure, and get involved. So thank you.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to talk to people.
No worries.